You are certainly still tuned into your favorite breakfast show, Tea or Coffee, on Nigeria's first full HD television. Now, Yemisi and I have just run through some very interesting facts about comics and animations, particularly the one I found there was the Stanley challenge on the Iron Man. Very fascinating. Now, to give this conversation more context, we have an animator in the building with us. He is widely and popularly known as Retron, but for the sake of this interview, we're going to be calling him Obashola Israel. Good morning, Israel.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Very lovely to have you in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin. Comics, right?
Okay.
What are for the viewers that probably don't they are not into comics like we are, wink wink. What are comics?
Okay, so comics or comic book is a visual art form of storytelling. So in where comics are concerned, you have still images or drawings with captions, or in most cases dialogue bubbles that kind of describe what the characters are saying, and then you place them in a sequential order where they tell a story or they pass a message to your readers. And as a comic book reader myself, I can tell you that that is one of the most engaging forms of storytelling there is. In fact, comic books are, most of the popular movies that exist today are either direct adaptations of comic books or are based loosely on comic books.
Yeah. You know, one thing I find fascinating about comic book, for instance, what you said about movies, right? Yeah. Because when they want to make a movie, they actually storyboard their movies.
Yes.
It's very interesting to see how some of these movies sometimes abandon the live action and then turn their storyboards into the actual comics.
Yes, that happens a lot.
Yeah. So now, what is the difference between a comic and a visual novel, like a comic book and a visual novel? Because, you know, there are people talk about them, but they usually talk about them separately. So what is the difference?
When you say a visual novel, like an animation.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is, a comic book, like I said, still images.
Right.
So it's like a picture.
Okay.
So you are left to kind of decipher what happens between one picture and the next. But with animation, these pictures come to life.
Okay.
So the characters move.
Right.
They give life to the characters. They feel like they exist. So you don't have to put two and two together on what happens between one page and the next. You see it happen. It's fluid.
Yeah.
So the character moves just like a movie, but it's hand-drawn.
Okay. So what now in Nigeria, what is going on in the comic space? Like, you know, I know what we grew up on Super Strikers, Checks the Guru, you know, and all of that. But, you know, with there, you know, like there's like Comic Republic, retro animation and all these kind of things. So what is happening in the comic space in Nigeria?
In the comic space in Nigeria now, I think we are waking up. Yes, because we realize there's a lot of potential. Like our Nigerian, we have a very rich history and a rich background when it comes to mythologies and stories. And it would be very nice to see the stories adapted into comic books and movies. So that's one thing we are waking up to. And you'll find that all these animation companies you've mentioned, they are tapping into that to make sure that they bring it to life, and they know that there's a potential to make something even better out of it. Like the comic book industry outside the country is like a multi-million-dollar industry. There's no reason why we can't be that big.
Yeah.
We just need to put in the work, make the effort, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah, you know, I love what you said about the mythologies, right? Because, you know, in the Greek mythologies, we see Zeus, we see Hercules, we see Achilles, and all these kind of things, right? And you know, you're very right. In Nigeria, for instance, in the Yoruba tradition, there's so many like gods and Orisha deities and all these kind of things, right? So my question now: how does comic book as a story, in form of focusing on storytelling, right? How does comic books, what importance does comic book give to storytelling in telling the African or the Nigerian story? Okay,
so like, you know, I said earlier that comic books are one of the most engaging forms of storytelling. It's easy to make and easy to spread. So you find that, you remember when Super Strikers was out there, every child was reading it. It was about football, so we're all engaged. And they'll be more interested in learning about it from a comic book than from a classroom, surprisingly. Yes, because you find that they are very impressionable. So when you give them a story in a visual form, something that they can see, something they can read, and when they have questions, they can make research. Because as a child, when I was reading comics, and I see something I don't understand, or science fiction that doesn't necessarily make sense, I go and research because I don't want to be left behind. I want to catch up before the next issue comes up. I don't want to be lost or be asking questions that nobody wants to answer. So I make research and I learn more every day from reading comics.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so given that importance, right? And you know, earlier you said that the comic industry in Nigeria is now beginning to wake up. So now, what forms of challenges do you face as a comic owner, a comic developer, and an animator? What kind of challenges do you face?
One of the biggest challenges will be funding.
Okay.
Yeah, so even though we are waking up, not many people want to invest in it. So you find that you have to be an independent creator. You have to kind of find your own people, build your own team. Right now, I'm working on a show, an animated series, Orisha, and creating it, you know, I reached out to some people, but nobody was really, you know, interested in what until like a few episodes came out, and then they started to see the progress and the work and the voice acting and everything, and then they were like, let's look at this thing. So that was one of the big challenges, funding. And then another challenge we face is gadgets.
Okay.
So the technology, we don't necessarily have the technology to make groundbreaking animation yet. And it also ties in with funding anyway.
Okay.
So you have to make the best of what you have. Like you have some small equipment, just do the best you can with what you have, regardless of the challenge. That's what I was saying.
So I really enjoy print scoring. Like I love it, you know. And I know one of ours, our voice of the morning, Omobolade, is a voice of a villain.
Yes, she voices the character Oya.
Oh my goodness.
And she has been incredible.
Yeah.
She's evil to the core on this show. Like the fans hate her, and I'm happy to say that.
Wow, her fans certainly don't hate her here.
So she plays Oya.
Yeah.
And if you are familiar with the Yoruba mythology, Oya is Shango's wife.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit there are some twists in my storytelling because I tried to deviate a little bit from historical accuracy with the storytelling and just try to reinvent the characters.
Yeah.
So you'll find a lot of things maybe out of place, but I promise you in time you'll see that.
So what has the experience been like, you know?
It has been incredible because this is the first time that I actually put my work on, this is the biggest platform I've ever put my work on. That's YouTube. And this is the biggest project I've ever worked on. So in the past, I worked on some small projects like Auto Crash, Heroes and Monsters on my website. It didn't go too far.
Yeah.
But then I decided, okay, let me make an animated series.
Right.
And as soon as I started that, the reception was incredible. People liked it, the engagements were rolling in, the views were coming in, and I was just getting thumbs ups and lots of encouragement, and that has been very helpful.
Wonderful. So now, what is your creative process like? You know, obviously developing these characters, writing the story with the twist. I can imagine that that can take a lot of creative energy. So what is your creative process like? Okay,
so first of all, I have a background kind of when it comes to storytelling because I've been drawing since I was in primary school.
Okay.
I've been coming up with stories since then. And I think like 24/7, I'm sitting and I'm thinking of possible stories to tell. So I had a couple of stories down in the works. And then when I decided to make an animated series, I was like, how can I adapt these stories into Western culture? You know, make it into something that is relatable with my people as Nigerians and stuff. So I said, the Greek mythology has done very well. The Norse mythology has done very well. So, and we have a rich background. So I was like, why not tap into the Yoruba mythology? So I decided to adapt the stories that I already have into the Yoruba mythology. So I just sit down, come up with basic ideas. And then you find that when you're writing a story, once you have a premise for the plot, and then you have your characters very well described and defined, you find that the story actually kind of tells
itself because the characters, you know what they will do, right?
You know, this is what my character will do, this is what my character won't do. And then as the writer, you just throw ridiculous challenges in their faces, and then you know how they will react to it. And if for any reason you want this character to act out of character, you know the kind of experience that will cause it.
Yeah.
You know exactly what to do to the character.
The
so I play God.
Yeah, pretty much.
I play God and I decide, you know what? Let me destroy this guy's integrity.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and then you watch the fans react to it. Because what you want when you are telling a story is you want people to care about the character. You want people to be as invested as you are, and then destroy the character.
Yeah. All right. So, do you ever face, do you believe in writer's block, first of all?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you manage writer's block in this creative process?
When that happens, I just stop.
Okay.
I just stop working. I take a break and I do other things that I love doing. I love singing. I love playing instruments.
Okay.
Producing music, writing music.
You're one bundle of creativity. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I love many other things. I love playing games. So I take a step back. I do all those things. And while you are doing all those things, you find that your true self, your true nature will come out, because you'll be sitting in the bowling alley and then you just think of something. Something will just come. And you won't be able to, you can't wait to get out of that place to go and put it down. And writer's block is gone. It's done.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that happens.
Okay.
So whenever I feel that way, I just take a break.
Yeah. You know, one thing I find particularly interesting about your series is the language.
Yeah.
You use, you know, the dialogue is using like everyday language, like guy alpha now, you know, so I find that's very interesting. All right. So one thing I find fascinating about your comic is the language. I really love, the language of the dialogue, because it's like everyday language, you know, for the Nigerian youth, they are able to relate with your characters. Because first of all, the dressing is like, you know, normal Nigerian youth kind of dressing, then the language, and then what motivates them is very relatable. So do you, as the creative, sometimes get attached to these characters that you develop?
Yeah, that's a big yes. So as a child, my role model, my favorite character was Superman.
Yeah.
But the problem with the character was I didn't look like the character. He's a white dude, fluffy hair and all that.
Yeah.
So we want to give the fans or the readers, the viewers, a character they can relate to, somebody they can see themselves as.
Yeah.
And when you are making such a character, you get emotionally attached.
Yeah.
And when you are telling the stories, you have to experience what this character is experiencing in order to direct exactly how it will be portrayed, because you are trying to create a link between you and the viewers. So you want to make them see this the way you see it. If you are not attached to the character, the viewers will not be attached.
Yeah, actually, because then, you know, it's the energy,
it's
you know.
The energy,
actually.
And when it gets so painful at times that when you have to kill off a character, it hurts.
Actually.
You feel like, damn, I'm not going to see this guy again. You know, the things that make him laugh. But he has to die.
Yeah. You know, okay, I don't know if you follow DC comics. So it's like when Dick Grayson died, Nightwing, like that was so painful. Thank God I follow comic lover. Understand? That was so painful.
That was painful. And then Jason Todd became Red Hood.
Yeah, you know.
And you know, his death was not the most painful part. The most painful part, like I described, the most painful part was watching Batman go off the edge.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, because you know that, okay, Jason Todd died. How is our favorite character going to process
deal with this?
And he kills Joker.
Yeah.
You know that's the one rule he has. He doesn't kill. Then he broke it.
Yeah.
So you are attached, you feel it. Yeah. And you are just sitting there wondering, what happens now?
You know, for the viewers, I figured, and I'll need to correct me if I'm wrong, but I figured that the creative needs to be attached to the characters so that the viewers, those consuming, can actually equally be attached to these characters, because that's why we love them.
Especially if you are the animator.
Yeah.
So the only way you can the only way you can animate the expressions, the way the viewers will feel it, is if you are experiencing that pain in real time.
The character.
Like you are experiencing it, like
they lose. Isn't that like an emotional roller coaster?
It is 100%. 100%. It is. it's painful. You are happy this moment, you are sad the next. And then sometimes, like I said, the story tells itself. So sometimes you are writing the story and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you realize that this character needs to die.
Wow.
So coming to that realization alone.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, as the writer, you are battling with it, trying to find a way
to save the character.
You are trying to find a way to save the character. But you know that if this story is going to make sense, if people are going to take me seriously, this guy needs to go.
Needs to die.
Or this person needs to win.
Wow. So all road leads to the cemetery for that character.
Like if you see the ending of Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, or Infinity War, those writers knew Thanos had to win in Infinity War. If not, there would not be an end game. We were sad. We were depressed.
And then Iron Man had to die.
So those are things that just have to happen when you are telling a story. And as a writer, you have to try not to cheat the flow. If you cheat the flow, you kind of lose your followers.
Okay.
So when you are watching a show that you can predict, it becomes a problem. So you have to try to stay as unpredictable as possible. All
right. So now taking into consideration this emotional roller coaster of that, I think it's highly important that I ask about mental health. How do you, is it something that you pay attention to? Because obviously to be putting yourself in the shoes of these characters, feeling their emotions that you are not particularly feeling. Do you understand? So, how do you manage your mental health in your creative process?
So it's like an escape from reality.
Okay.
So it's something you love doing and it's something you enjoy doing. So the mental health factor, I think we kind of just project that onto the viewers.
Okay.
So it's when you are making it, it doesn't really affect you. You feel it, and then you wrap it up, and then you be like, "I'm going to mess this video." Take it. Take it like that. So no matter what you are feeling, while you are creating it, once it's out there and you see the fans and viewers reacting to it, it's kind of rewarding. There's a sense of fulfillment, and you're fine.
Fantastic.
And you're like, let's do something crazy next time.
All right. Okay. So on a final note, I would like you to encourage young animators, young creatives that are trying to develop stories, develop characters in the comic industry. The comic industry is, I didn't ask you about Comic-Con, what you're wearing, but I've come, so we have to come correct. But let us just wrap up the show by trying to encourage young creatives in Nigeria today.
For young creatives, I would say make as many characters as possible. It doesn't matter how ridiculous you think they are. It doesn't matter if you think their powers are, unfathomable. Just make as many characters as possible. Make ridiculous powers. Come up with anything. Come up with stories and get them out there. That's what's most important. Because one of the problems I went through growing up was I felt like my art was not good enough. I felt like my characters were not good enough. And the truth is, your art to you may not be good enough, but to somebody else, it may be the best thing they've ever seen.
Actually.
Art is relative. So it's a thing of perspective. So the thing is just create. Make sure you go through that creative process. Work on a project. No matter how small, no matter how big, work on something. No matter how ridiculous you think it is, work on something and push it out there. Let people react to it, because that's the only way you grow. So don't keep your work bottled up. And fortunately, we have social media at our disposal. You can always put your work on TikTok and all those things. So once you create your stuff, just try and get it on as many social media platforms as possible and get your reactions, get your feedback, and keep going from there. Don't be questionable at any point where they ask you, let me see something you've done, and you say it's in my wardrobe. No. Make sure you can direct them to a link or something. Make sure it's out there. Make sure you're always ready.
Thank you very much for joining us in the studio this morning. Comics are one of my, comics and cartoons are one of my highlights. So I've had a lot of fun discussing with you. Thank you for coming on the show. That is Retron, Israel on the show on Tea or Coffee, discussing, comic books. I'm reeling of excitement. Discussing comic books and animation on Tea or Coffee this morning.